The first step in using the SSS system with a sample is to go through and determine which spellings are analyzable. The premise is that if a spelling is so off from the target that trying to compare one element to a corresponding element in the target makes no sense, it's taken out of the sample. You'll see in many of our papers we consider the number of analyzable spellings a separate dependent measure. We have defined analyzable in a variety of ways depending on the study. Typically, we say that at least one element must have a reasonable representation for it to be analyzable. But even then, that may vary depending on the study that you're doing. It's just important that you consider this on the front end and then define what you ultimately determined to be analyzable, what you determined would be most appropriate to use in this element-to-element comparison. So here is a sample that we collected in one of our studies, and you'll see the target words on the left and the spellings on the right. So for the target word honey, the student actually spelled that correctly, so it obviously goes in. The word then was spelled N-E-X-T. So what that tells me is something happened strange in the system. The child didn't hear the stimulus correctly, he wasn't paying attention, etc. But it makes no sense linguistically to compare the items TH, E, and N to these items. So I would count that as unanalyzable. So what I actually do is I have a column and I say, all right, that one was analyzable, I put a 1, and this one is not analyzable. There's not sufficient correspondence between the spelling and the target to include it in my analysis. So I put a 0. Why? That's close, so I put a 1. It's correct. Again, here's pause, and the child spelled it C-A-T-R. Again, makes no sense, so I put a 0. Jog was spelled T-A-L-K. What I would actually do in real life if this happened is I would go back and make sure that there wasn't some sort of weird data entry problem here. If indeed I said jog and the child spelled it T-A-L-K, I would consider that not analyzable. Leaf, analyzable. Knocked, when that target word was given, the student didn't respond at all. So I'm going to take that out as not analyzable with an SSS system. Jet is fine. Unite was unice. And what my research assistant did was put and maybe the child did as well, put a space in here. What we do with this is we strip all spaces. And so we say that up front. If a child makes some sort of spacing error, it's not counted in the SSS system. You may want to describe that some other place. You may want to have that as a dependent variable, but I'm getting rid of it for the SSS analysis. So now, once I got rid of the space, this is actually a decent alignment. So I would count that. Has at least one, actually several elements that are obviously attempted by the student. Cure, spelled as S-U-C-E, really a judgment call. By the way, we have run reliability with lab assistants on the determination of analyzable versus not analyzable, and we always are over 90%. So we're actually comes out easier than it sounds. So with this case, I probably would say that it's analyzable since the vowel structure is there. That's correct. That's missing, so it's not included. 0. Missing, so it's not included. Correct, so it's close. Here we have consonant, vowel, consonant, and in this spelling there's a consonant, a vowel, and a consonant pattern. S seems like a reasonable attempt to go for SH, so I would probably include this, but if you had a different perspective and you elected not to, you could do a 0. Cry for cries, really all that's missing is the morpheme there. I'm going to include it in my analysis. Coal is missing. Cheese for key, so far away I'm not including it. Missing. Correct, correct, missing. Day for they, because this is a legitimate attempt for the vowel, I'm going to include it. Missing, missing. This is an interesting one. The vowel aligns, and I also am going to use some judgment. I can see how a child might get confused with just the physical appearance of a J versus a Y, so I'm counting that as a legitimate attempt, so I will count as analyzable. Heard for hunt, again I've got matching the H at the beginning. The D and the T, they match in sound. The vowel sound is similar, so I'm going to count that as analyzable. Pie is there. Reach is missing. Make for bake, counted as analyzable. WHINT for WHITE, very close, analyzable. Stop for stopped, analyzable. So you can see that I've gone through this sample, and I would continue for the rest of it. I've gone through and determined what makes sense to put through the SSS system. Once I do that, then this was created in Excel, so I'm going to sort this and prepare it for SSS analysis. So now that I've marked, classified every spelling as either to be included in the SSS system with a 1, analyzable, or not to be included. It's not that it's not going to be captured in my study, it's just that it's not going to be subjected to SSS analysis. So I'm going to just copy these, just going to sort these on the basis of column C. And so these words, I have 18 words, and I'm going to have a different data analysis place where I say, for this particular participant, how many words or what percentage of the words were analyzable. So in this case, I have a total of 40 words in my sample, and I find out that 18 of them are not analyzable, so I would indicate someplace that 22 words were analyzable, 18 words were not analyzable. Now I'm going to take these words out of my file, and now I have only the words that are ready and appropriate for using the SSS system. I can get rid of my ones now. And by the way, you can do reliability. You can have one investigator classify words as analyzable or not analyzable, have a second investigator do the same classifications, and then just compare notes. In our lab, where we have a lot of students doing research, we typically have them separately classify as analyzable, 2 or 3 samples. We look at their agreement, and then we have a training session on why somebody may have judged it one way, somebody else a different way, and we come to some consensus before we actually calculate the overall reliability on all samples. So back to the sample. Now I have a list of target words and productions, and these are ready for input to the SSS system. I'm going to save those someplace I can remember this on my computer. And they're going to be called analyzable spellings. But these, you would probably name this as, participant 1. Notice that I saved those in CSV format. Those data are going to be ready to input into SSS, which we will show you in the next video. But again, whenever I have my analyzable targets and spellings entered, all I have in this file are the target words and the spellings. I don't have any column headings like target, spelling. I don't have any numbers. You'll see there are no spaces in this. Everything is only the spellings. I did a save as, picked out what I was going to name it, and then I chose CSV format. That's important, and you'll understand why in the next video.